Update: I didn't tell my father and stepmother about my son's birth. Original post: My 26 female father, 59 male, has been dating Paula, 38 female, for 4 years. I never got to know her well, as I was about to move out when we met. My sister, 20 female, still lives between our parents and likes Paula but finds her annoying. Paula has an odd attitude towards pregnancy. It became the most obvious when my cousin announced she was expecting back in 2021. Her daughter would be the first great-grandchild. We hadn't been sure my grandma would be around for that. And after an emotional announcement in which everyone was overjoyed, Paula commented that she felt it wasn't a big deal and didn't get what all the fuss was about. She kept that stance for all 9 months. But once the baby was born, Paula suddenly became a bit too interested in her, which my cousin was clearly uncomfortable with. My husband, 28 male, and I announced our pregnancy earlier this year. At first, my father was over the moon. Since this is his first grandchild, I believe that would last. But as I heard from my sister, Paula has just as condescending as we expected, if not more. Whenever I announced anything about my pregnancy or baby, gender, first kicks, ultrasound pictures, etc., Paula always reacted with one of 3 phrases. Okay, that's not that big a deal, or is that all she talks about these days? I didn't care about it at first, but after a few weeks I started to notice my father was also losing any interest he had in my pregnancy. As the months went by, he became increasingly detached and standoffish. He started to either ignore or not pay attention to most of the updates I made on my baby. He also didn't come to our name reveal. We did that instead of a gender reveal. It was literally just a lunch party with a game we made up, or the baby shower because, and I quote, Paula doesn't think it's worth it. My son was born on Halloween, and I decided not to tell my father and Paula. After almost 9 months of excuses and disinterest, I didn't see any reason to. I was in the hospital for 4 days, during which only mine and my husband's closest friends and family visited us. The day before we left, I posted a picture of my son on Instagram, and that's when my father found out. He called to ask why I hadn't told him and Paula or invited them to meet my baby, and I didn't lie. They didn't make any efforts to get involved, both emotionally and physically, during my pregnancy, so they'd have to wait for baby news like everybody else. My father and Paula are furious, accusing me of using my son as a pawn and keeping them away out of pettiness. They're saying I'm holding the fact that they missed a few dumb parties against them. My husband and pretty much my whole family agrees with me. My sister, while mostly on my side, still thinks I should have told my father, since this is his first grandchild, and he had to find out he was born through social media. She thinks this is all Paula's fault, and I should apologize to our dad. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Info: Has Paula ever been pregnant/had kids herself? Her disinterest in pregnancy details and then being super into her cousin's baby once they were born seems to me like it's her being jealous that she never went through that. No, but from what I gather, she doesn't want to. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but this really comes across to me as her having unresolved feelings about her decision to not have kids. Perhaps her feelings are exacerbated by people around her having kids, her getting older, being with a much older man, etc. She sounds like she's trying to convince herself and everyone else that because she didn't have kids, she has to poo-poo on anyone that wants to celebrate those milestones that she didn't ever have. You're not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your dad made a choice, and that choice was to care more about Paula's feelings than yours. Exactly this. Does he not have his own brain? He couldn't go to his grandchild's naming party because Paula didn't think it was worth it? She's perfectly allowed to think that, and not attend. However, if the grandfather of the child wanted to be there, he could, and should have said to his wifey, "Have a great afternoon. I will see you after the naming party." Lol, not the a-hole. And furthermore, 1. Don't have any second thoughts about if what you did was right or wrong. 2. The BS. He, your pops, might not have / probably didn't know or wasn't aware. It's all bull. He is a grown man who has children of his own. He knows everything that happens during a pregnancy. 3. You get what you give. No relationship should be an excuse to treat people horrible. It gave off "I don't care" vibes, and you just reflect it back. You shouldn't have to go out of your way. Your job is to grow a baby. Your dad's job is to grow a pair. You're doing great. Set the boundaries and stick to them. You don't owe them a relationship with your son. That needs to be earned and nurtured by him. Good luck and congratulations. Update. Most of the comments helped me understand that I did the right thing. Maybe I was the a-hole, but I had the right to be one. My final conclusion was, be rude to me through a hard time in my life? Fine. Have fun in the peanut gallery. I decided that I wasn't exactly comfortable with the idea of Paula holding and cooing over my newborn after almost 9 months of rudeness and lack of acknowledgement. So, I told my father that while he was free to come to my apartment and meet his grandson for the first time, I didn't want Paula to tag along. My intentions weren't to ban her forever, but rather to just wait a month or two, or in a perfect world, until she apologized. We had a small fight over it, but my dad agreed and came to meet him without Paula. He visited us a couple more times that week. During these visits, he was cold and short with me and my husband, and I ended up being cold in return. This was admittedly not my proudest moment, but I was too tired and angry to care at the time. A little under 2 weeks ago, my paternal aunt and 2 cousins, including the one I mentioned in my previous post, came from out of state. My cousin stayed at my apartment while my aunt stayed at my father's. During her stay, my aunt caught several instances of Paula openly bad-mouthing me and my unfair treatment of her, but didn't comment on it at first. And then the day before she left, she watched my father not only agree with Paula, but call me childish and ungrateful as well. Like most of my family, my aunt knew the whole story. She told them both off for how they treated me during my pregnancy. My sister was there and eventually joined in. The result was apparently a huge fight between all 4 of them. Eventually, my sister started crying. She drove to my place and told me everything before falling asleep on my couch. My father called me and we fought. It lasted about 40 minutes. And after countless attempts on his part to play the "but I'm your father" card, I managed to make it clear that I owe Paula nothing, least of all my time and attention. The next day, my aunt came over for lunch. She told us that after our argument, there was another massive fight, this time between my dad and Paula. She didn't pick up on specific words, only screaming. A few days later, my dad called me again. He apologized and promised to try to be more involved. I'm not sure how sincere he was. I accepted the apology but told him he's on thin ice. I will help him be a part of our lives, but I refuse to be the only one making that effort. It's not my job to try to engage him in things he shows no interest in. And if he doesn't get invested in something, he can't expect to be treated the same as the people who do. My sister went back to his place a few days later. Paula wasn't there. Apparently, she's staying with her mother for a while. Neither of us know anything else about that. If this turns out to be an actual breakup, my father will probably wait a while to confirm it. I never wished ill on her, but I'd be lying if I said I had faith in their relationship, or any of my father's for that matter. Countless fights and a cluster feeding newborn later, I'm exhausted. I'm glad this is over. My relationship with my father is still very strained, and I'm not particularly proud of how things turned out. But my main focus now is my son, and it warms my soul to witness how loved he already is. From the bottom of my heart, thank you all. It seems to me your father has started making efforts before the possible breakup. Him visiting a couple of times looks like a step in the direction of paying attention, hoping for your relationship will improve and becoming a positive part of your and her son's life. I hope so too. I don't want him to tarnish his relationship with his grandson. It sounds like there's a good possibility he might have realized how much he might miss. The determining factor is sadly if Paula is gone for good, since it's clear her influence was the problem. You're right to not be the only one making an effort. I feel sorry for your father. It seems he was genuinely interested in your pregnancy, but Paula's attitude poisoned him and sucked out all of his enthusiasm to the point that he missed the birth of his first grandchild. I'm not saying you were wrong to leave them out of the loop. He needed a wake-up call. But if he keeps making an effort to participate in your and your son's life, you should give him a chance. Let's hope he has learned his lesson should Paula actually come back. I'm giving him a chance, but again, I won't be the only one making the effort to get him involved. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my half-sister she and her siblings can figure stuff out with dad on their own? I'm 36 female, have a brother 38 male, and we have 3 half-siblings from our dad's second marriage. 25 female, 23 male, and 21 male. My brother and I lost our mom as kids. Our dad took a year and told us that was enough time hanging on to the past. He remarried within a year of saying that, so a little under 2 years after the death of our mom. He told us once people die, they need to be left in the past after a period of time, and you work on filling their role and replacing them as much as you possibly can. The whole thing was gross. He would become extremely frustrated when we did not leave mom in the past. His second wife was also part of his mindset. It worked for her, so she really pushed for us to do the same. When she was pregnant with half-sister, she told us it would be unfair for the baby to be born into a disunited family, and that my brother and I had to accept she was our mom now and she had taken her place. Dad was cheering her on with that little talk. My brother and I were never close to our half-siblings. They picked up a lot of their parents' attitude about, we should leave mom in the past and let second wife be mom. They blamed us for others knowing we were not a true nuclear family, and instead were a blended family. I never cared. My brother enjoyed seeing dad and second wife have egg in their face when they would claim we were her kids, and people knew because of us that she was a stepmother at best, but more like a dad's wife. Second wife died a few months ago, and half-siblings all believed dad would be widowed for the rest of his life, and not remarry because he loved their mom so much. They wanted to talk to him about having one of them live with him, or for him to live with half-sister. But he told them he was already looking for his replacement wife. Half-siblings went nuts and tried to involve my brother and me, but this has nothing to do with us. Neither of us have talked to dad in almost 2 decades. We hardly talk to them even. My half-sister decided she wanted a face-to-face talk about this with me, where she tried to say, as the only 2 girls, and how unfair it was to her mom for dad to replace her. She told me we need to get on board and help them with dad, and figure out how to stop him. I told her that was none of our concern, and dad replaced my mom, so I wouldn't care if he replaced someone I never cared about. She told me I should care, and her mom did an amazing job with my brother and me. I told her she and her brothers are adults and are way older than my brother and I were when we lost mom and dad remarried, so they can figure this out with dad without us. I also reiterated I would not lend any assistance with this. I was told I was a crappy sister, person, daughter, and that I freaking suck. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Some people cannot be alone, and your father seems to fit into that category. Whether or not your father marries for a 3rd time is his decision. He didn't care what his children felt about remarrying after his first wife died. What makes your half-siblings think this time will be any different? You are all adults, and it's not a problem that has to be solved, and you told your sister as much. I think they believed he loved their mom more and so he would never do that again. I also think it stands out to them that he is dating less than a year after their mom passed, when he waited a full year after we lost ours. He does what he does, and they will have to learn to either be okay with it all, including how he talks about it, or go distant like my brother and I did. But I do not want to get involved. I really don't care. Not the a-hole. Your father and stepmother were a-holes. People can move on with their lives, but to say you should forget about someone and replace them is gross. And your half-siblings are now experiencing what you went through. I wonder why they thought your dad would be any different now. He was supposed to love their mom more and want to remain faithful to her even in death. He was supposed to love and care less for mine and my brother's mom, or maybe not at all. Have they even apologized for their behavior now that they are going through the same thing? Or do they still think you were unjustified in your feelings? If so, that's hypocrisy at its finest. They still think we were unjustified. They still expected us to care more about their mom than our own. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that he has to let my dad witness his colonoscopy? My mother-in-law wants to be in the room when I give birth. She's an unpleasant and pushy woman, and none of her own daughters have allowed her near them when they gave birth. My sisters-in-law are all at least 12 years older than my husband, and are all done having kids, so I am the last chance for my mother-in-law to see the birth of a grandchild. I have zero interest in letting that judgmental old woman see me down there. She has objected to me from the beginning because I have tattoos and I'm not in any way interested in being a stay-at-home wife. I have a lot of tattoos and a career I plan on continuing. And I have tattoos down there that are none of her business. My husband is her baby boy. He is a good husband and has stood up for me against her many times. When she tried to interfere with our wedding, he put his foot down. When she tried to convince him that we should move to his hometown where he could work from, but I would not be able to find an employer in my line of work, he said no, because my career is important to me. And while we can live off of his earnings and the cost of living is lower in his hometown, our combined earnings are much better altogether. She has started crying to him that all she wants is to see a grandchild being born. All her friends have experienced it, and she wants it. He's starting to crumble under her emotional blackmail. So, I made it clear that the only way I would agree was if, before the birth, my husband made arrangements for my father to witness him getting a colonoscopy. He would need a ride anyway, so 2 birds, 1 stone, you know. He said I'm being ridiculous. But I said none of my brothers would let my dad see them getting a camera shoved up their behind, and it felt left out. He finally understood my point, but his mother is upset that I used such a stupid comparison. She says that it isn't the same thing at all. So I offered to change it to me watching her get a Brazilian wax, and she has it called in a week. Now for the top comments. Ha 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 ha, you pulled that off perfectly. Not the a-hole. Ignore her. I don't understand the fascination with wanting to see another woman giving birth. Your body does not become public when you get pregnant. The entitlement isn't real. As a former doula, I can also tell you that either it's a long day or 3 of a lot of hard work supporting the laboring woman. Or your useless presence means you're a jerk who is sucking the life out of the room. Not the a-hole. Your boundaries are important, and it is unfair for your mother-in-law to pressure you into something so personal against your wishes. Alright, this is among the funniest AITAs I have ever come across. Not the a-hole, and congratulations on a really smart move. Giving birth is not a spectator sport. No means no. My sister-in-law was worried about people coming to the hospital, so she just straight up didn't tell anyone when she was going into labor. We got a text a couple days after the birth that had a picture of the baby. There are some situations where you just gotta not put up with all the BS. You can talk to a nurse and tell them only XYZ person is allowed for the birth, and they don't mess around with this. They will have security escort them out. I know not telling anybody is easier, but there's another option.